Hello and welcome to Vino Frankel, a Taste of Sculpterra. Wonderful. This is episode 1, our first episode. I'm super excited, happy, thrilled to do this. I think this is something I've wanted to do a long time. My name is Paul Frankel. And again, Vino Frankel, a Taste of Sculpterra. Yes, so who am I? I grew up in a vineyard on a winery. Well, we built the winery in 2005 and opened in 2007. But basically, I grew up learning grape growing. I went to Cal Poly, did the wine and viticulture major, Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. And I've done YouTube videos. I've done short clips and things. I've always wanted to do a podcast, especially with guests. And on this podcast that we're starting today with Miguel Nunez, my producer in the Paso Robles Podcast studios. We are here in Paso, right down the road from Sculpterra. It's great to be here. Easy, wonderful. Wanted to do a podcast for a long time because I feel that I have a lot that I can share, a lot that I can talk about here, and especially for our fans, wine club members. This is an opportunity for you to learn more. I'm going to dive deep into winemaking, grape growing, all the nuances. You know, I'm not a wine expert. I'm not a professor, but I have many years experience making wine, and I love it. I'm passionate about it, and I think you will see that. You'll see that. You'll experience my passion and all that I'm experiencing. So I want to read you the show description. I won't do this every show, but because it's our first one. Learn, have fun, and be entertained with Paul Frankel, that's me, of Sculpterra Winery. As he explores everything wine, from grape to bottle, Paul shares his 17 years of winemaking experience in the growing Paso Robles wine region. Each show features special guests, co-hosts, an eclectic group of industry professionals, wine snobs, wine lovers, restaurant owners, marketing personalities, and Paul's personal friends. Take a deep dive into Paul's method and madness as he embarks on a journey to make the best wines possible. Learn more about Sculpterra's past, present, and future. Don't be shy. Ask questions, comment, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and repost the video. So there we go. Yes. So again, happy to be here. Happy to do this, and it's just a remarkable time because I've been thinking about doing a podcast, and Miguel Nunez, who's in studio today. He's not always going to be my guest. He's mostly going to be behind the camera doing all the behind the scenes stuff, keeping the show going and looking as good as it does. But I wanted to bring Miguel here for the first show, so you get to meet him, learn a little bit about his story, how he got into the podcasting business, how he got involved in Paso Robles, why he's here. And then for future shows, I will feature different guests, and Miguel will be back where he belongs, back in the chair, running the show. So thank you, Miguel. It's really great to be here. Can you tell us a little bit about your start in the podcast world and why you do what you do?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me on your very first episode. I feel like we're making history here. One of the big things that I kind of started telling a lot of people in the last week or two is hey, I landed Sculpterra as a client, which is huge because I believe you guys have one with the big names in Paso Robles for sure, and if not in the wine world. So I'm excited for what's going to come out of this podcast show, especially with all the knowledge you have, man. You've already started including me in the newsletters, and I'm just I'm learning. So for me, my name is Miguel. I'm the owner and operator of Paso Robles Podcast Studio by EZF Media. And what I started noticing a lot in my 20s is I was having a lot of conversations with people that I was they have so many great stories. And one of the things that I always kind of felt bad for not encouraging them or not doing for them is recording it and documenting it for the world to know. Putting it in some sort of platform, putting them in some sort of pedestal because they've worked so hard. And I come from a Mexican background where people work, and then they leave the world. That's it. There's no documentation of the stories other than pictures or stories from grandma, grandpa. And then Paso has such a great history with, the agriculture and the wine and small mom and pops. I just started thinking to myself, there has to be a way. And back in 2017, I was listening to a lot of like Joe Rogan, and I'm like, wait, if he's doing this, there has to be a way. So I started diving into what it takes to at least record the audio. And it was a lot of trial and error. I would do basic USB microphones, then eventually XLR, and going down technical terms, start going into like the audio interface, and getting a little crispier sound. Instead of trying to record the whole room, I'm recording each person individual channels. And once I got to the point where like audio was like good and crisp, I started seeing people posting their YouTube, or mainly Joe Rogan, but I started seeing more and more people posting YouTube versions or video versions of the podcast show. And I'm like, I have to figure out the video part now. And that's where I started diving into, okay, I don't want to commit to investing in a whole bunch of cameras, but how can I use my phone? Whatever's in my pocket, pretty much. And I started recording with one phone. And then I found a second phone, and I found an interface for video that allowed me to switch back and forth between the phones to change camera angles. And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And then I figured out where to put it, when to put it. And then I think it was maybe like 2 years ago when I said, all right, this is working for me. Now let me see if I can offer for other people. And that's where the business came into play, is like, all right, I created a space. I promoted myself word of mouth first, and then social media. And now people are reaching out to me that I don't even know, from sometimes from out of the city, and they're passing through, and they'll just rent it out for one day. Oh. And I'm like, that's awesome. So I feel like I've come a long way, but at the same time, there's so much more growth for the business for me, that I'm just like, I'm excited for what I get to do for other people. Help them level up their storytelling, help them document, help them create social media content that they can use, repurpose, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. And I think it just benefits everybody to be able to just document their story. And I think video podcasting itself needs to be explained a little bit more sometimes, because I think people still think podcasting is just audio. And today I think we're proving them that it's more than that now, for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing me on your first episode. I'm really excited.
Yeah, like I said, I want the folks to meet you. I mean, this channel, these videos are going to start out, and it's going to build. Yeah. We're brand new at this, which is exciting and fun, and we can watch it grow. And then I'm even thinking, 20 episodes from now, someone might go back and say, "Oh, there's Miguel. He's the one doing all the background things, uploading everything, doing everything." So, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing it. And so, let me ask you: so, do you like living in Paso? Are you happy being in Paso?
Absolutely. I think one of the big things about living in Paso is when people say like it's too expensive, there's nothing to do here. Like, I remember being a high schooler and saying that myself, but then once I really got out there and learned what Paso really is, I mean, I feel like we're priced accordingly, living like the cost of living, like that doesn't bother me. Like, I've always told myself, like, if I need money, I'll just go make it. So it's just one of those things where, like, I love living in Paso. Growing up in Paso, I got to see Niblick Bridge being two lanes up to 4 now. I got to see the playground rebuilt from wood to actual safe playground material. I got to see downtown blow up to what it is today. The movie theater being put in, but I think the big thing I enjoyed about seeing Paso is how the wine country aspect of it put it on the map. It definitely did. Mm-hmm. And now you're seeing a lot of people come through because they're hearing not just wine country, but the small town vibe here too. Yep.
Exactly. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you for doing this. Thank you for having me. Thank you for offering this. I want this show to be exciting, entertaining, different. Like I said, I'm going to have special guests that are really wine knowledgeable, wine snobs, or maybe wine set or sommelier type people who can really pick apart wine. Part of the show, obviously, we're going to taste wine. We can't have a wine show without trying wine. And I think it'd be cool to try 2 wines each show. We'll do these at the end of the show, so stick around till the end of the show. We're going to taste something and talk about it. I brought our Viognier, which is a white wine, and our Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a red wine, which are the 2 grapes I feel that we do the best at. Matches our soil, our land, our topography, our climate. Both those grapes do remarkably well. So, but each show, I'll bring different wines. We may do library wines or new releases, or just wines that I'm really enjoying at that moment, wines that are just tasting great, and I want to tell you about them so you have the opportunity to go to the tasting room, purchase them, and enjoy them yourself. This show is going to have different segments, come up with a couple interesting things. Like I said, we're always going to have a special guest where the guests will introduce themselves. We'll talk about my connection with the guest or co-host. I'm calling it a guest, but it's really a co-host. We're going to work on this together. The next segment is the world of wine, which we can get into the wine industry, what trends we're seeing, where things are headed, what we're noticing. But also I want to use that opportunity to talk about the health benefits of wine. There's a lot of negativity around alcohol in general, or there's a movement away from alcohol and drinking wine, and I want to show you and express to you that wine in moderation, and wine has a lot of health benefits, and enjoying a glass of wine is a great experience. And once you understand where this wine came from, where the grapes were grown, how it was farmed, the people behind it, the effort it takes to make a bottle of wine is just tremendous. And I think with that understanding, an appreciation comes out of that. So the world of wine. And then I'm going to talk about our Sculpterra events. We try to do at least one event per month. Our next event is October 18th. We're doing our Harvest Fiesta, a fun Hispanic Mexican themed party with folkloric dancing and Mexican food and a music and a DJ. In fact, one of the restaurant owners and the dance instructor, they're going to be here on this podcast in 2 weeks from now, and we'll get to hear their story, and they'll talk about what they're preparing for this Harvest Fiesta. So again, we do at least one event every month, and I want this to be a platform or place where I could talk about events and get the word out. So please come out to the events we have.
These are local people that are from around here, right? They've probably seen them somewhere else. You use local. You don't get people from LA or somewhere else.
Correct. Yeah, actually, the dance team. My son Abraham is on the dance team. He's on the Mexican folkloric dance group. So he's been doing that for a couple of years now, and he loves it. And it's a great group of kids. They perform at Day of the Dead and other things happening in Paso. Yeah, and then for the food, we use local restaurants, especially those restaurants that support us, that sell our wine in their restaurants. We want to support them and have them help us out and do wine and food catering events as well. So that'll be a section that I go over each week. Then I thought, maybe a little too much information, TMI segment, where I'm going to talk about something personal that happened to me during the. So I should mention now that these podcasts are going to be recorded on Tuesday, and Miguel is going to get it live uploaded on Friday. So it'll come out every Friday. So there's just going to be one a week. And I'll have a section where I talk about, something that's happening with me, something happening in the vineyard, on the farm, but something more personal, a personal spot. Always fun. I always find it more interesting when you get to know the people, when you, the personality of the person. Like I said, I really want you as the listener to get to know me, get to know my passion, and get to know really who I am. We have a lot of animals in the vineyard. This is something that my son and I talk about all the time. Every day when I come home, he says, "What animal did you see today? What's happening out there?" Because we've got bobcats and foxes and squirrels and coyotes, so lots of animals. So I thought, maybe we could have a section, it'd be kind of cool, talk about specifically the animal, a specific animal in the vineyard, and talk about how it affects the vineyard. We're not only have to deal with the elements and rain and weather and heat, but we deal with lots of animals, lots of wild animals.
So what are the chances of people seeing an animal there on their visit? Like, is it 50%, 60%? Like, what do you look?
Well, our neighbor has lambs up the hill from us that they could see. But yeah, there's definitely a good chance. We have a lot of deer too. A lot of the wine tasters at Sculpterra, when they're walking around our sculpture garden, they'll see deer running through the vineyard. So deer eat the vines, they eat the grapes. So we try to chase the deer out. We don't want the deer.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, deer. That's one of those animals. Another section I want to do is nerd out on wine. Okay, so this will be more of a technical section of this podcast, where we'll talk about something like tannins or aromas or oak barrels or phenolics. Get a little bit more in depth into what makes wine, why wines come out the way they do, why something tastes a certain way, why it doesn't taste a certain way. So for all of you nerdy wine people like myself, I like to really pick apart a wine. I always try to match the smell with the taste and figure out where I sense it on my tongue and how the front, middle, back palate, how it finishes, really try to understand what's going on. And there's a lot of technicalities to wine, but then it's also comes down to, do you like it? What wine or what styles of wine do you enjoy? Do you like sweet wine? Do you like non-sweet? Do you like robust wine, thin wine, medium-bodied, heavy wine, light-bodied? So there's just a huge variety in wine. But this will be a time when we can really pick apart something specific within the wine world to nerd out on wine. And then each podcast we'll do mailbag, a time when we go over questions, comments that you've left in the comments, or questions I get throughout the week. I get a lot of questions. People email me all the time. They'll ask about if we're sold out of certain wines, or they have a question about grape growing, winemaking, whatever it is. This will be your opportunity to ask the winemaker, and I'll be truthfully honest. There's no secrets in winemaking. Wine's been made for 2,000, 3,000 or more years. So there's not, everything's been kind of done under the sun. You can just pick grapes and step on them. Yeast, you can add yeast, or just let the yeast that are in nature do its thing, and it'll create wine. So this will be an opportunity for you to ask me any questions about Sculpterra or what we're currently doing. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to taste wine. So I'm always going to bring 2 wines with me, usually one white and one red, but that can change, obviously. And then there we go. That's the podcast. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be lighthearted. I'm going to definitely give you my personal taste, who I am, what I'm doing, and why I'm doing this. So, all right. One thing I wanted to mention, and I'll have Miguel talk about this, is, why start a podcast, and what do people want out of a podcast? So I would just say real quickly that, if the podcasts that I listen to are people that are entertaining, that have a sense of humor, that are fun, but also I want to learn something. So I'm dedicated to all those things, to give you a good time, to be entertaining, and to teach you something. We're gonna learn things as we go through my life as a winemaker. Now, Miguel was talking when I met with him last week about how most people start podcasts, and they do a few episodes, and they maybe a couple episodes in, they realize, this is really not for me. I don't want to do this. This is maybe it's not so much fun, or whatever the case may be. They stop doing it, but we don't want to do that. I'm committed to doing this for 2 years. Miguel and I have worked it out where we're going to start today, episode 1. We're going to do 96 episodes. So that it seems intimidating. It seems like a lot. It seems unmanageable, and it can't happen. But I have a lot of stuff to go over. And I know a lot of things happen to me throughout my day, throughout my life, throughout my regular job of all the things I'm involved in. So it seems like a lot, 96 episodes. But I'm committed to it. And I think if you're committed to keeping up with us, you will really enjoy it. So, Miguel, what were you saying about once you hit 22 episodes, you're in the 1%?
Yeah. So when you hit 22 episodes, number 22 is a big number in the podcast world, because when you hit 22 episodes, you are in the top 1% of active podcasters. That means out of the hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, you are one of the very, very rare that have made it to 22 episodes and have gone beyond that. And then the number just kind of gets smaller there as you keep going to 50, to 60, to 70, to 96 episodes. I think once you get to 96 episodes, it'll probably be like 0.03% active podcast, because a lot of people start a podcast and a lot of them drop out at 7 episodes. A lot of them stop at 22, 21. But that consistency is key here, right? And that's what you're going to be doing. That's why you committed to 96. That's why you committed to 2 years. And I think when we comparing episode 1, and we can do that, episode 96. We'll compare, do some flashbacks or something, because that'll be fun. That'll be fun to see how far you've come and how much you've covered from episode 1 to episode 96. And, statistically speaking, it works out for the people who stay consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I grew up on the property. I'm part of the family. I'm a future owner. I'm not going anywhere. I want to live on the vineyard and keep it going. So I'm committed to it, and I love it. I love what I'm doing. And when I'm at the tasting room, which is not that often, when I'm doing a tasting for guests, I go on for an hour or more. So I usually have to watch myself, because I can just keep talking about all the little things that we're involved in to make a bottle of wine. I really enjoy it. So I think now would be a good time for mailbag. So these are questions that I came up with for myself, but these are questions that I get a lot, and thought it'd be fun if we went over these right now.
Yeah. So the first question we have is, what is going on right now at the winery?
Yeah, so this is also kind of crazy, right? Because we're starting a podcast in the middle of harvest, which I always think I can't add anything else to my life. I can't, take on anything more, because I've got so much happening on my plate all the time. But I want to do this podcast. So what's happening right now is we are harvesting grapes. We're about 20 to 25% done. We've picked Viognier, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, Syrah, and we're going to pick Primitivo hopefully on Friday. Now there's a threat of rain tomorrow, so when you're watching this Friday, hopefully by that point we didn't get rain. But there's a little threat of rain tomorrow morning, which may delay things. We may have to wait longer to pick if the vines get really wet and damp and the clusters get soaked. But yeah, we are at the beginning part of harvest, so we're not crazy busy with fruit being picked every day and fermentations and pressing and barreling down. But I predict that next week and then 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of October, we'll get really busy. We're probably going to pick most of the grapes the next 2 to 3 weeks. We have a lot of Primitivo we grow. We have 10 acres of Primitivo, and this is the biggest crop I've seen. We usually get 2 to 3 tons per acre. This year, I think we've got 5 or 6, which I can talk about tons per acre and crop load I can go on and give a little more specifics than that. But the good thing is that block in particular looks super healthy. The vines are as green as can be. The clusters are evenly spaced out, and they're becoming sweeter. We check the bricks, which I'll get more into that. Bricks it's how sweet the grapes are. It's a measurement of sugar. So we do a weekly bricks check. In fact, tomorrow morning we're going to go through and check different vineyards on the property, and by checking weekly, I could say, all right, this block is ready to go. It's time to harvest. Or, ooh, this vineyard's only at 22 bricks, and we want to pick it at 26. So it's a couple weeks away. It could be even a month away. So what's going on right now? It's the beginning of harvest. It's about to get super busy in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We should be done picking. Hopefully, we're done picking by the Harvest Fiesta. That's our goal, which is October 18th on a Saturday. What's nice is if we finish harvest and all the workers come to this Harvest Fiesta, which is really a party for them. It's a celebration of all the workers that have worked hard, not just for the harvest, but all year, from all the prunings of the vine and tying and training, everything that happens leading up to harvest. It's really interesting too, because there's so much you do that affects the way that the wine will taste. But ultimately, it's how well you took care of the vineyard and what you did before you harvest. When you pick the grapes, you're looking at a beautiful cluster. It's pristine. All the berries are spaced and beautiful and full and plump. But what led up to that? It was the conditions. It was what the weather was like in spring and summer and fall, and all the work that led into that point.
I think a lot of what's going to be really beneficial for with this 96 commitments of episodes is throughout the season you're going to be able to talk about that like in real time. Yeah, that's what I'm excited for too. What's your favorite wine? Is that the question? Yeah. This is
a question that drives me crazy, and I try not to be rude with people because they say, what is your favorite wine? And I think a lot of it, as Americans, I think we have that feeling like, just pick one wine. Just give me your best wine. I just want one wine. Don't give me all the others. Because I make over 25 wines every year. So there's a huge variety. And I usually tell people, because I get asked this question all the time, what is my favorite wine? And it'll change. Some days I prefer Cabernet, Primitivo, Grenache, some of our blends. We have some amazing blends. So right now, I would say I just opened up a 2023 Cabernet. That's a Bentley Ironworks Cabernet. Bob Bentley, who made our entrance gates. We have a special vineyard named after him. His gates, you drive through his beautiful gates as you enter our tasting room. The 2023 Bentley Ironworks, which is officially coming out to our Cabernet Wine Club in December 1st of this year. I opened a bottle of that, and I could not believe how good it was tasting. It's all new oak, which we don't often do. It was 780 cases, so we made a lot of it. That's a lot for us. And wow, it's got everything that I want in a Cabernet. So right now, the 2023 Bentley Ironworks Cabernet, which is not available for tasting at the tasting room. Now, if we're talking about a wine at the tasting room, I love the Grenache 2023, which I brought our poster here. You might be able to see that. Got a 94 points in Wine Enthusiast Editor's Choice, which is really rare. Once you get above 94 to 97 is the next category of excellence, and then 97 to 100 is almost a perfect wine. So Grenache 2023, I remember this wine really well. I remember when the grapes came in. I remember the fermentation process and pressing, barreling down. I remember tasting it in its early stages, and wow. One of those wines that has fully ripe characteristics while maintaining acidity and mouthfeel and texture. And I like to serve it cold. I think I like my red wines chilled or slightly chilled. I've been more enjoying red wines that way. I think it helps with especially with some of the higher alcohol wines. If they're served a little cold, it'll mask the alcohol and the acid really springs forward that way. So the Grenache 2023 also, that's one of my favorites.
What wine are you most excited for?
Yeah, this is another question I get all the time, which is, folks come to the tasting room and maybe they come once a month because they bring their family and friends. We have a sculpture garden, which is a huge attraction. It's unique, different bronze sculptures out of granite. So just an amazing sight. So people come often, and I understand, and that they want to see, okay, what's something new that you're doing? What do you got in the works? Right now, because it's harvest, my mind is really wrapped around the grapes that we're picking right now. Our Pinot Noir, I think that is something new and exciting I'm working on. Not a lot of people have Pinot, especially on the east side of Highway 101. We planted that back in 2008, and I love making Pinot. And this year I made 3 different lots of Pinot. So we started picking it on August 29th, which was interesting. This was one of the first years in many that we started harvest in August and not September. So I did 1 lot August 29th, and then I did 2 more lots on September 5th. So I made 3 different wines of Pinot Noir. Of course, I'm going to blend them together, but now as a winemaker, I get the chance to taste them individually and take a percentage of each and make the best blend that I can. So I'm very excited about Pinot Noir. And what's nice about Pinot is this is not a tannic, robust, heavy, dark, knock you over the head wine. This is more light to medium bodied, refreshing, pretty wine. Just lovely and crisp and clean. A lot of fruit components in it. It comes out great. So that's one for sure I'm excited about. And that won't be bottled till next December and come out in 2027. But Pinot Noir.
My quick note on that one is I actually got introduced to red wines via Pinot Noir. And I have tried the Pinot Noir you guys have, I believe, with Edway, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I did notice is, one thing I do say is, like, if you're for some reason feel tired of Pinot Noir, try yours, because it kind of re-inspires you to be in love with Pinot Noir. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, it's kind of like when you have a soda for a long time and you're like, ah, man, I'm getting tired of Coke, and you switch over to Pepsi. It's a little different. But it's still dark soda. And then you kind of like, oh, you enjoy the soda again. That's where my mind was at when I tried your Pinot. It was like, oh, wow, this is really good, but it tastes a little bit different, but it's still very light. It's not too heavy, and it's like fruit forward for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do I know if wine I purchase is age worthy?
Yeah, this is, again, I included this question in here. So Miguel's asking, how do I know if I should age a certain wine? And this is kind of a loaded topic. This could be a topic all on its own. But basically, I've tried to make it easy for you. So we use a cork on wines that are more meant for long-term wine storage, cellaring. And then we do a screw cap finish, just a twist off for wines that are meant to be drank right away. Basically, if it's a Paso Robles red wine, if it's Syrah, Cabernet, Zinfandel, it'll last 3 to 10 years after it's been bottled. I know that's a really broad term. It has to do a lot with the tannins, which is a natural occurring organic phenolic compound in grapes, which will help the wine age. As the wine ages, the tannins fall out of solution. They fall to the bottom of the bottle. But in general, wines do improve with age. Some red wines age longer than white wines. For our own wines, for our Sculpterra wines, the most ageable wines are definitely the Cabernets, Cab Blends, and our Petite Syrah. Those of you that have had Petite Syrah, it's really dry, really tannic. You can let that age for 10 or 15 years if you wanted to. I heard a stat one time that most wine is drank within 2 days of purchase or a day of purchase. Most people purchase wine and they're buying it to drink right away. It is fun to age wine, especially when I get Darren Brown on here. He's going to be on here Tuesday, the last Tuesday of this month. We started a library at Sculpterra where we say we are sold out of wine, or when we're almost sold out of wine, we'll hold back a case or two, stick it in our library, and then come back to it years down the road. And when we come back to it, the wine's definitely changed. It's become softer, smoother, more elegant, it's developed more of a long finish. But you could take it too far. So wines have a bell-shaped curve. They get better and better. They reach their peak, and then they don't just drop and turn and become bad. They start to develop and taste other characteristics, more of the oxidized characteristics. So I also think, and I tell people this all the time, it goes down to personal preference. Do you like the more fruit, fresh tasting wines? You should drink young wines, the wines that you taste in the tasting room. Buy them now, drink them now. Or if you like the more preserved, oxidized, caramelized, more smooth, softer wines, you should definitely you should purchase the red wines and let the red wines age. So there's a lot more to that question, but basic guidelines. And we're going to taste wine in just a little bit. So when we taste these wines, I'll mention that as well.
How is the weather affecting this harvest?
Yeah, this question comes up a lot because obviously we're so focused on the weather. Whatever, if we're going out, whatever you're doing in your day-to-day life, you're thinking, you want to know what the weather's like. And this year has been really interesting because spring and summer were relatively cool. It was a cooler year, which the vines liked. The vines grew. They had good bud break, good lots of flowering and setting, and the berry enlargement. Everything kind of tracked really nicely. It seemed like we were behind schedule because, again, we had a cooler spring and summer. We had a couple timely heat waves in end of July, early August. It's even pretty hot. It was almost 100 degrees yesterday, and it's getting close to that today. But anyway, we did get some heat waves that kind of pushed us into picking. So it's really key to have the right weather at the right time. What's great about Paso is we get those diurnal temperature swings. It could be 100 in the day, 55 at night. I mean, there's only a few places in the world that have that climate. And grapevines love it. They really thrive in those big temperature swings. The grapes get sweet in the day, and they retain their acidity in the cool of the night, cool of the morning. So it's been a weird year of weather, I would say, but it's been very beneficial. Again, the spring and summer being cooler, didn't stress the vines. The vines just grew a really nice canopy, really thick canopy, and they produced a lot of fruit. Then with these heat waves later, they kind of pushed us into harvest, pushed us into ripening. It looked like the harvest was going to be really late. Like we're talking late October, November, and we don't want a late harvest. When it becomes late, then you get threats of rain. And, as we get closer to end of fall, into winter. So we want to get everything picked, by the end of October for sure to avoid any bad weather. But I've liked the weather this year. It's been different, and I think it's been helpful to the vines. I think we're in store for a really great year in 2025 vintage.
Yeah. So I think now we're gonna be tasting wines, which you said you had a red and a white. I guess my question for when we do taste the wines is, how popular are Viogniers? Because the word itself is hard to say sometimes.
Yes, it's funny with Viognier. It's in French. It's Viognier is how we're supposed to say it. Viognier. Of course, that's really challenging, very difficult. So we pronounce every syllable Viognier. Yeah. Viognier is our most popular wine. That's across the board, whites and reds. Like you said, it was very unknown. We planted our Viognier in 2005. The first vintage was 2008. And I remember being at the tasting room, and people were saying, "What is this wine? I've never heard of Viognier. What is it like?" And right away, I discovered, when we making it, tasting it, that it's a red wine drinker's white wine, meaning for people who don't like white wines typically, who like the more robust and full-bodied wines, Viognier has those. Is more on that line. It has a lot of complexity, has a big finish, a bigger mouthfeel. Our Viognier wins lots of awards. I mean, I could just go on and on. I could just list off every vintage, all the awards it's won. I mean, it really stands out, really does well. So I brought our 2023 Viognier, which is almost sold out. Again, I want to use this opportunity to highlight wines that are selling out, or maybe a new wine that's coming up, being released. This wine's almost gone. And a lot of our fans, a lot of our wine club members, you guys love our Viognier, and you purchase it by the case. So if you want more 2023 Viognier, I suggest getting it now. The 2024 vintage came up really shy, really light. So that'll be coming out right after. And then right now we're making the 2025. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab the 2023 Viognier. We've got our wine glasses right here. We're going to try that. Awesome. One moment. All right. Viognier, I'll hold it up right here so we can take a look. Yeah. 2023 Viognier. It's got John Jagger's famous cat on the label. We're going to talk more about the art too as we develop this podcast here. Again, we have 96 episodes, so we're going to get into a lot of different topics, including art, Sculpterra, and art. So I'll give Miguel a little taste here.
Thank you.
Viognier 2023. Yes.
So walk us through how to do a tasting, because I know you're going to get a lot of new people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I really enjoy looking at that, talking about that. The first thing is analyzing the wine, looking at the color of the wine. And to do that, we swirl the glass and move it around. Legs, if you've heard of legs, like a person's legs. Legs are the alcohol that sticks to the side of the glass and runs down. So if it's really thick, if it takes a while to run down, it's usually a sign that the wine has higher alcohol. But looking at the color of the wine, the first thing you should do is look at the color. You can learn a lot by the color, especially on a white wine. If it's brown, which it should not be brown unless it's a sherry or some other dessert wine. But this is not. This is our 2023 Viognier, which is a dry table wine, white wine. So it should have a golden hue or yellow hay look to it. It looks really nice. And then one thing I like to notice, or I like to comment with people who taste wine, is a lot of people, when they smell wine, they'll smell the wine really far away. You can't really pick out what's going on. I always encourage people to get your nose deep into the glass and analyze what you're smelling. So our Viognier especially has a lot of stone fruits, a lot of peach, nectarine, a lot of flowery components to it as well. A lot of honeydew, cantaloupe, melon. I get a lot of those flavors out of it as well. And then something fun, Miguel was just asking about, how we taste wine. I always try to match the smell with the taste. Actually, what you smell and really impacts what you taste. So I think smelling is almost more important than tasting. Tasting is really your where you sense the wine, where you sense it on your tongue. If you sense more of the wine on the front of your tongue, it's usually sweet. If you sense it on the back of your palate, that's usually where higher alcohol will linger, and then you get tannins, bitterness, astringency on the side of your tongue. So let's go ahead and taste this 2023 Viognier. Yeah, when you taste wine, it's always best to swirl it around in your mouth because, again, you want to see where you sense it, what part of the tongue, what part of the palate do you sense it. And just a lovely wine, easy drinking, but complex. There's a lot to it. There's a lot going on. Viognier, we talked about aging wines. Viognier, if you ask someone like Topless Creek, which they're a fantastic winery on the west side of Paso, they age their Viognier they have an aging chart I've seen where it shows, where they say that you can age Viognier for up to 10 years more, possibly. White wines do age. Red wines, I think, obviously age longer than whites, but again, all depends on your personal palate. So this is 2023. So right now it's 2025. So this wine was bottled in March 2024, and in 2024 it had a lot of fruit to it. Now it's starting to lose some of its youthful fruit and pick up more candied, caramelized auxiliary tastes, which are also really nice. And the mouthfeel is definitely improving as it ages. What do you think, Miguel?
You mentioned something along the lines of if it's in the front, it's more sweet. If it's in the back, it's more. What was the last part? If it's in the back, it's more.
When you sense it on the back of your tongue, that's alcohol. Usually, if you were to drink Jack Daniels or something, high alcohol, it'll have a long finish. It lingers. It stays on your palate. That's the effect of the alcohol staying on the back of your palate.
Yeah. So for this one, I'm actually getting the entire tongue covered. So to me, the word that comes out is balanced. Mm-hmm. Is that appropriate? Is that just up to me how I see it, kind of thing? That's
what I want to hear. If it's a balanced wine, then we're hitting all spots. Mm-hmm. I didn't mention that, but that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a wine that maybe is a little sweet where you sense it on the front of your tongue. It's got a stringency and bitterness and mouthfeel on the side. Then it's got elevated alcohol. You don't want too high of an alcohol because that'll be all you'll taste, but you want it elevated because it helps the finish and helps the wine linger. You hear that expression a lot with wine tasting, if it lingers on your palate. So exactly, when I'm making wine, I'm trying to hit all those spots on your tongue so that it's an all-encompassing, enjoyable experience. Well, I'm going to get our next wine, the Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah, and I came directly from the vineyard, from the winery. So this cab was getting a little warm on the way here, so I stuck it in Miguel's fridge just to chill it down just a little bit, and we will see. Cabernet. Now, I mentioned earlier that cab in my mind is what grows best on the property. It's what I think it's hardy. It holds up. It's less prone to frost, and the flavors from Cabernet come out incredible. We have Cabernet planted on the hillside. We go up about 1,100 feet down to the valley where we're about 800 feet. And it's not that one site is better than the other for Cabernet. They're both unique and different, and you get different characteristics derived from different vineyards. And then again, as a winemaker, I make those blocks separately. I make the Hilltop Cab separately from the Bentley Ironwork, separately from the Cab in the Valley. And then I can do different yeasts, different oak barrels, and then blend them together or isolate them and keep them separate. All right, here we go. So this is our Cabernet 2021. One of the reasons I brought this wine is also almost selling out. And I did 1,100 cases. This is one of our largest wine productions that we do. And again, looking at the color for a red wine, you want it to be brick red. I was always taught, if it has that brick red hue, that means it's a healthy wine with good acidity. It's nice and stable. It has a low pH, high TA. And you want to look at the rim of the wine. If the rim is starting to get brown and oxidized, then you know that this wine is aging, and it's maybe not that it's too old, but that's an indication that you're tasting an older wine. This wine has a really nice red hue from the edge of the wine all the way to the center. Now this wine, on contrary to the Viognier was made all in stainless steel tanks, which means it never saw time in oak barrels. This wine was aged only in oak, so we fermented it in stainless, but we aged it in oak barrels, and it was 18% new oak. So there's going to be a hint of clove and butterscotch, vanilla, fresh cut wood. Those are going to really come through. But then you get a lot of the fruit. I notice a lot with our Cabernet, a lot of cherry, a lot of blackberry, a lot of boysenberry. 2021 Cabernet. Here we go. And, as I mentioned earlier about aging wines, this is a 2021. So we're now in the 2025 harvest. This was quite a bit of time ago. And it's still improving. This is one I don't think it's reached its peak. I'm really liking where it is, and it's still developing. It's very nice. So we went from Viognier, kind of to freshen up our palates, and to a really big, hearty Cabernet. Well, Miguel, are you now becoming a red wine drinker as well as a white wine drinker?
I think I started off white with like Riesling, and then I got introduced to reds with Pinot Noir, as I mentioned, right? And I'm kind of digging this chilled red wine, to be honest. Yeah.
Again, also the warmer the wine is, the more you perceive alcohol. The colder it is, the more the alcohol gets diminished, and the acid really comes through. But it's interesting, because I went to Cal Poly, did the wine and viticulture major. I took lots of classes on tasting wine, and I was taught how to pick up flaws in wine. So I'm not a lot of fun to go wine tasting with, because I'll taste wine and I'm just picking up what you shouldn't smell. If it's a corked wine, or if it had Brettanomyces or bacterial infection or molds or whatever it is, those smells really pop out at me, because as a winemaker, I'm focused on making and keeping everything as clean as can be, so that what you're experiencing, what you're tasting, is from the vineyard. There's nothing that's hindering that experience, hindering that taste that interfered with it afterwards. Where I want to make the most purest wine that I can, and this wine tastes and smells very true to Cabernet. Cab could have a vegetative component to it. It can have, which we call herbal, vegetative or herbal, where it's oregano, green olive, leafy green. But those qualities mixed with the fruitiness of it makes it balanced, makes it complex, and definitely changes as it ages. That's our 2021 Cabernet. Well, fantastic. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for experiencing this with us today. Again, this was our first podcast, episode 1 of 96, 2 years. I have a lot of exciting people that are going to be on this podcast. Again, we're always going to taste wine. We're always going to bring up some new fun things about wine. And I'm going to talk about Sculpterra, where I work, where I live, and new and exciting things happening at Sculpterra, because we love to be active. We love to do a lot in the community, and we want to bring this all to you. And this is a really great opportunity. So thanks, Miguel. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me have the ability to just come right down the road and film a fun podcast with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me as your first guest on your first episode. How can people reach you with questions and concern, whatever they need to do to reach you?
Yeah, I want you to comment in this YouTube video. This is going to be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We have a Facebook page. We started a new Facebook page last year, which is facebook.com /Sculpterra. Is that how you say it? / I think. / Sculpterra. Facebook.com / Sculpterra. We also have Instagram. So this is all going to be posted in the description of the video where you can have links to all that. You can also just email me directly, paul@sculpterra.com, SCULPTERRA, paul@sculpterra.com. I will respond to you really quickly. I love emailing and I love keeping that all organized. So yes, you may see me at the tasting room time to time. But yes, email me directly and ask questions. Again, this is an opportunity where you ask a question, I'll bring it up on the show. I love to answer all your questions that you might have.